If you're over 60 and you've been waking up with stiff, aching joints, or you find yourself wincing every time you try to stand up from a chair, I need you to pay very close attention to what I'm about to share with you today. Because there's a very good chance that some of the habits you believe are harmless, or even healthy, are actually making your joint pain significantly worse with each passing day. I've seen it happen hundreds of times in my practice. A patient comes in, frustrated, sometimes even desperate, wondering why their knees, hips, or shoulders seem to hurt more and more despite everything they've tried. And when we sit down and really examine their daily routines, we almost always find the culprits hiding in plain sight. I'm Dr. Sophia Reynolds, and I've spent over 20 years specializing in rheumatology and joint health. Throughout my career, I've helped thousands of patients just like you understand what's truly happening inside their joints, and more importantly, what they can do about it. Before we begin, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, I highly recommend you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another health tip made especially for you. And if you find this video helpful, please leave your suggestions and questions in the comments below. I read every single one, and it helps me create more content to help people just like you. Now, let me tell you about something that happened in my office just a few months ago that perfectly illustrates why this topic is so important. Mrs. Eleanor Thompson, a lovely 72-year-old retired librarian from Portland, came to see me with tears in her eyes. She'd been dealing with knee pain for over 5 years, and lately it had gotten so bad that she could barely make it up the stairs to her bedroom. What broke my heart was when she told me she'd stopped visiting her grandchildren because she couldn't keep up with them anymore. The pain had stolen her joy. When I asked her about her daily habits, she was confident she was doing everything right. She took her medications, she tried to stay active, she watched what she ate. But as we dug deeper, I discovered 4 habits that were silently sabotaging her joints every single day. And once we addressed them, her improvement was remarkable. So today, I'm going to share with you the 4 worst habits that worsen joint pain, habits that so many people unknowingly practice. And then I'll give you 4 habits you should be doing every single day to protect and even improve your joint health. Let's start with the first habit that could be destroying your joints, and this one might surprise you. The first devastating habit is sitting for extended periods without movement. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You've heard that rest is good for painful joints, and to some extent, that's true. But there's a crucial difference between appropriate rest and prolonged immobility. Here's what happens inside your joints when you sit for hours at a time. Your joints are designed to move. They contain a special fluid called synovial fluid that acts like oil in an engine, lubricating the cartilage and reducing friction. But here's the thing most people don't realize. Your joints don't produce this fluid when they're stationary. Movement is what stimulates its production and circulation. When you sit for 3, 4, or 5 hours straight, your joints essentially become dry. The cartilage that cushions your bones starts grinding against itself without adequate lubrication. Over time, this accelerates the breakdown of cartilage and intensifies inflammation. I had a patient named Mr. Robert Chen, an 81-year-old former accountant from San Francisco, who came to me completely baffled about why his hip pain had worsened so dramatically after he retired. He told me that before retirement, despite long hours at his desk, he felt better than he did now. The difference? When he worked, he had to get up for meetings, walk to the copy machine, go out for lunch. Now, retired, he would sit in his favorite recliner watching television for 6 or 7 hours at a stretch. When I explained to him that his joints were essentially suffocating from lack of movement, the realization hit him hard. We created a simple plan where he would stand up and move around for just 3 to 5 minutes every hour, and within 6 weeks, his hip pain had decreased significantly. His wife told me she couldn't believe the transformation. I had another patient, Mrs. Barbara Mitchell, a 74-year-old former bookkeeper from Minneapolis, who spent most of her day seated at her computer playing bridge online. She loved the mental stimulation, but she didn't realize that those marathon sessions were wreaking havoc on her joints. Her knees had become so stiff that getting up from her chair had become a multi-step ordeal involving pushing, pulling, and sometimes calling her husband for assistance. What made Barbara's case particularly interesting was that she had been diagnosed with mild osteoarthritis years ago, and her doctor had told her to take it easy. She interpreted this as meaning she should move as little as possible. But that's not what taking it easy means for joint health. It means avoiding high-impact activities and excessive strain, not avoiding all movement. We worked together to restructure her day. Instead of playing bridge for 4 hours straight, she would play for 45 minutes, then get up and walk around her house for 5 minutes, do some gentle arm circles and knee lifts, and then return to her game. She also started taking her phone calls while walking around the kitchen instead of sitting down. The results were remarkable. Within 2 months, Barbara reported that getting up from her chair was no longer a production. She could simply stand up and go, something she hadn't been able to do in years. Her husband noticed she was more willing to go out for errands and social activities because she wasn't dreading the physical effort involved. The simple act of breaking up her sitting time had given her back a freedom she thought was gone forever. The second habit that's making your joint pain worse is something that seems completely innocent, and millions of seniors do it every single day. I'm talking about wearing the wrong footwear. Your feet are the foundation of your entire skeletal system. Every step you take sends forces traveling up through your ankles, knees, hips, and even your spine. When your footwear doesn't properly support and cushion these forces, your joints absorb shock they were never designed to handle. I'll never forget Mrs. Patricia Williams, a 68-year-old retired nurse from Chicago who loved her flat ballet-style shoes. She'd worn them for decades because they were comfortable and easy to slip on. But when she started developing severe knee pain, she had no idea her beloved shoes were the problem. You see, flat shoes with minimal cushioning and no arch support allow your foot to roll inward excessively with each step. This misalignment travels up the leg, putting abnormal stress on the knee joint. Studies have shown that improper footwear can increase the forces on knee cartilage by as much as 25%. When I convinced Patricia to switch to supportive shoes with good cushioning and proper arch support, she was skeptical at first. But after just 1 month, she came back to my office amazed. She said it felt like someone had turned down the volume on her knee pain. Those beautiful but damaging ballet flats now stay in her closet, and she wears them only for special occasions when she won't be on her feet for long. I want to share another case that really drove this point home for me. Mr. George Martinez, a 76-year-old retired construction supervisor from Albuquerque, had the opposite problem from Patricia. He wore heavy work boots every day, even in retirement. They were sturdy, yes, but they were also rigid, heavy, and worn down in ways that threw off his entire gait. The soles were compressed unevenly from years of use, causing his feet to roll outward with every step. George had developed severe hip pain on his right side, and when I examined his shoes, I could immediately see the problem. The right heel was worn down almost half an inch more than the left. Every step he took was like walking on an uneven surface, forcing his hip joint to compensate in unnatural ways. I explained to George that shoes are like tires on a car. You wouldn't drive on tires that were bald on one side and inflated on the other. Your body deserves the same attention. We got George fitted for proper walking shoes with orthotics to correct his gait, and within 8 weeks his hip pain had decreased by what he estimated was about 60%. The lesson here is twofold. First, the style of shoe matters. Flat, unsupportive shoes are problematic. But second, the condition of your shoes matters too. Even good shoes become harmful when they're worn out. I generally recommend replacing walking shoes every 6 months to a year if you're wearing them regularly. If you're still watching and finding this information helpful, I'd love it if you could comment with the word learning below. It lets me know you're engaged and helps more people discover this important information. Now, let's talk about the third habit. And this one is especially tricky because it seems like it should be helping your joints, not hurting them. The third harmful habit is overdoing it with high-impact exercise, or pushing through pain during physical activity. I understand the logic many people use. You think that if exercise is good for joints, then more exercise must be better. Or you believe that working through the pain will somehow strengthen your joints. Unfortunately, this couldn't be further from the truth. Mr. James Mitchell, a 75-year-old retired Marine from Denver, embodied this mentality perfectly. He'd been active his entire life and refused to let arthritis slow him down. Every morning, he would run 3 miles on the concrete sidewalks near his home. When his knees started aching, he pushed harder. When they started swelling, he told himself it was just weakness leaving the body. By the time he came to see me, the cartilage in both his knees was severely degraded. The very exercise he thought was keeping him young had accelerated the destruction of his joints by years, perhaps even decades. High-impact activities like running, jumping, or even vigorous aerobics on hard surfaces send tremendous shockwaves through your weight-bearing joints. For young, healthy joints with thick, resilient cartilage, this isn't a major problem. But for joints that are already showing wear and tear, each impact is like hammering a nail into deteriorating wood. And pushing through pain? Your pain is a signal, a warning system your body has developed over millions of years of evolution. When your joints hurt during activity, they're telling you that damage is occurring. Ignoring this signal doesn't make you tough. It makes you vulnerable to irreversible injury. For James, we replaced his running routine with swimming and cycling, activities that provide excellent cardiovascular benefits without the joint-damaging impact. Within 3 months, not only was his pain significantly reduced, but he told me he actually felt better than he had in years. He could play with his grandchildren again without paying for it with days of agony afterward. I want to mention another patient because her story illustrates a slightly different aspect of this problem. Mrs. Susan Baker, a 66-year-old retired aerobics instructor from Orlando, had spent her entire career teaching high-impact fitness classes. Her joints, particularly her knees and ankles, had taken decades of pounding. When she retired, she continued attending high-impact classes because that's all she knew. That's what exercise meant to her. But Susan's body was telling her something different. Her ankles would swell after every class. Her knees ached for days afterward. She started taking over-the-counter pain relievers before and after every workout just to get through it. When she came to me, I had to help her understand that exercise isn't one size fits all. What works for a 30-year-old body is not appropriate for a body that has logged decades of high-impact activity. We worked together to find low-impact alternatives that still gave her the endorphin rush and sense of accomplishment she craved. Water aerobics became her new passion. She told me the water felt like a warm embrace that supported her joints while still giving her a challenging workout. The point I want to make here is that adapting your exercise routine as you age isn't giving up. It's being intelligent about how you care for your body. The goal of exercise is to improve your health, not to prove something to yourself or others at the expense of your joints. The fourth and final habit that might be worsening your joint pain is one that affects nearly every aspect of your health, and that is chronic dehydration. Most seniors don't drink nearly enough water throughout the day. Part of this is physiological. As we age, our sense of thirst diminishes, so we don't feel the urge to drink even when our bodies desperately need hydration. Part of it is practical. Some people limit fluids to avoid frequent trips to the bathroom, especially at night. But here's what you need to understand about your joints and hydration. Remember that synovial fluid I mentioned earlier? The lubricating substance that keeps your joints moving smoothly? It's approximately 80% water. When you're dehydrated, your body prioritizes water for vital organs like your heart and brain. Your joints, unfortunately, are lower on the priority list. Mrs. Dorothy Anderson, a 70-year-old retired school principal from Phoenix, is a perfect example. She came to me with widespread joint stiffness and pain that seemed to affect her shoulders, knees, and hands all at once. She'd been tested for various inflammatory conditions, but all her results came back relatively normal. When I asked about her fluid intake, she admitted she probably drank only 3 or 4 glasses of water a day, and 2 of those were usually coffee or tea, which can actually have a mild diuretic effect. In the dry Arizona heat, this was nowhere near enough. I created a hydration plan for Dorothy that gradually increased her water intake to 8 glasses per day. We also reduced her caffeine consumption and added foods with high water content to her diet. The improvement wasn't overnight, but within 2 months, she told me her morning stiffness had reduced by half, and her joints felt less crunchy, as she put it. What Dorothy didn't expect was how much better she felt overall. Her skin looked healthier, her energy improved, and she even noticed that her digestion was better. Proper hydration affects virtually every system in your body, and your joints are just one of the many beneficiaries. The key takeaway here is that not all fluids are created equal when it comes to joint health. Pure water should make up the majority of your daily fluid intake. Coffee in moderation is fine, but it shouldn't be your primary source of hydration. Now that we've covered the 4 habits that are harming your joints, let me share with you 4 habits that you should be doing every single day to protect your joints and potentially even improve their condition. The first beneficial habit is gentle morning stretching and range of motion exercises. The way you start your morning sets the tone for how your joints will feel throughout the entire day. When you wake up, your joints have been relatively immobile for 6 to 8 hours. The synovial fluid has settled, and your muscles and tendons are stiff. Many people make the mistake of jumping right out of bed and into their daily activities. This sudden demand on cold, stiff joints can cause microtraumas that accumulate over time. Instead, take just 5 to 10 minutes each morning to gently wake up your joints. Mr. Thomas Wright, a 77-year-old retired firefighter from Boston, transformed his mornings with this simple practice. He told me that for years, getting out of bed felt like his joints were made of rusty hinges. Every morning was a battle against stiffness and pain. I taught him a simple sequence of gentle movements he could do while still lying in bed, then sitting on the edge of the bed, and finally standing. He'd rotate his ankles, flex and extend his knees, circle his hips, and roll his shoulders. The entire routine took 7 minutes. Thomas called me after 3 weeks, and I could hear the emotion in his voice. He said it was the first time in years that he actually looked forward to getting up in the morning. The stiffness that used to plague him for hours was now gone within 20 minutes of waking. His wife told me he was like a different person. I should mention that the specific stretches matter less than the consistency and gentleness of the approach. Simple movements like ankle circles, knee extensions, and shoulder rolls can make a tremendous difference. Mrs. Helen Foster, a 78-year-old widow from Richmond, was initially resistant to this advice. She told me she didn't have time for stretching in the morning. She had things to do, places to be. But when I pointed out that she was spending far more time later in the day dealing with pain and stiffness, she agreed to try it for just 1 week. That 1 week turned into a permanent habit. Helen now calls her morning stretching routine her joint coffee. Just like she wouldn't start her day without her cup of coffee, she won't start it without waking up her joints. The key is to make it easy and enjoyable. Do it in bed if that works for you. Do it while watching the morning news. The best stretching routine is one you'll actually do consistently. The second daily habit that will protect your joints is incorporating anti-inflammatory foods into every meal. What you eat directly affects the level of inflammation in your body, and inflammation is one of the primary drivers of joint pain and deterioration. There are foods that pour gasoline on the fire of inflammation, and there are foods that act like water, helping to calm and control it. The goal is to shift your diet toward the latter while minimizing the former. Mrs. Margaret Sullivan, a 73-year-old retired teacher from Seattle, had severe rheumatoid arthritis that wasn't responding well to medication alone. When we reviewed her diet, I discovered she was consuming large amounts of processed foods, sugary snacks, and red meat, all of which are known to promote inflammation. Over the course of several months, we gradually transformed her eating habits. We introduced fatty fish like salmon and mackerel twice a week for their omega-3 content. We added colorful vegetables, berries, nuts, and olive oil. We reduced her consumption of processed foods and refined sugars. The change wasn't just about her joints. Margaret told me she felt like she'd shed a fog she didn't even know was there. Her energy improved, her sleep improved, and yes, her joint pain decreased measurably. Her rheumatologist was able to reduce her medication dosage, something Margaret had been hoping for years to achieve. I want to give you some practical guidance on this. The foods that tend to increase inflammation include refined sugars, white bread and pasta, fried foods, red meat in excess, and processed snacks. These foods trigger inflammatory responses in the body that can worsen joint pain. On the other hand, anti-inflammatory foods include fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines, which are rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Leafy green vegetables like spinach and kale contain compounds that help control inflammation. Berries, especially blueberries and strawberries, are packed with antioxidants. Nuts, particularly walnuts and almonds, provide healthy fats that support joint health. And olive oil, especially extra virgin olive oil, contains a compound called oleocanthal that works similarly to anti-inflammatory medications. Mr. Richard Park, a 71-year-old retired engineer from Houston, was skeptical when I talked to him about diet and joint pain. He's a numbers man, a skeptic by nature. But I challenged him to try an anti-inflammatory eating pattern for 60 days and track his pain levels each day on a scale of 1 to 10. Richard took the challenge seriously. He documented everything meticulously. And at the end of the 60 days, his data showed an average pain reduction of nearly 3 points on his 10-point scale. He came back to me with his charts and spreadsheets, and even he couldn't argue with his own numbers. He's now one of my biggest advocates for the connection between diet and joint health. If this information is resonating with you, take a moment to hit that like button. It really does help spread this message to others who need to hear it. The third essential daily habit is maintaining a healthy weight through consistent, gentle activity. I need to be very direct about something. Every extra pound of body weight puts approximately 4 pounds of additional pressure on your knee joints with each step you take. If you're carrying 30 extra pounds, that's 120 additional pounds of force hammering your knees thousands of times per day. But I also want to be compassionate about this topic, because I know how difficult weight management becomes as we age. Our metabolism slows, our activity levels decrease, and sometimes medications we need can contribute to weight gain. Mr. Harold Johnson, an 80-year-old retired postal worker from Atlanta, weighed 260 pounds when he first came to see me. His knees were in terrible condition, and he'd been told by another doctor that he would need bilateral knee replacements within the year. Harold felt hopeless. He told me he couldn't exercise because of the pain, and he couldn't lose weight without exercise. It seemed like an impossible situation. We started very slowly. First, we focused on nutrition, making gradual changes to his diet that reduced his caloric intake without making him feel deprived. Then we introduced water exercises at a local community pool. The buoyancy of the water supported his weight while allowing him to move his joints freely. Over the course of 18 months, Harold lost 45 pounds. His knee pain decreased so significantly that when he returned to the orthopedic surgeon, the doctor was amazed. The surgery was postponed indefinitely. Harold still swims 3 times a week, and he told me those pool sessions are the highlight of his week. What I want to emphasize is that the goal isn't necessarily reaching some ideal number on the scale. Even modest weight loss can have a dramatic impact on joint health. Losing just 10 pounds takes 40 pounds of pressure off your knees with every step. That's significant. Mrs. Carol White, a 73-year-old retired administrative assistant from Nashville, lost only 15 pounds over the course of a year through small, sustainable changes. She didn't go on a dramatic diet or start an intense exercise program. She simply reduced her portion sizes slightly, swapped some snacks for healthier alternatives, and started taking daily walks around her neighborhood. Carol told me something that really stuck with me. She said that for years she had been waiting until she felt better to start exercising. She finally realized she needed to start exercising, even gently, to feel better. The walk started at just 10 minutes and gradually extended to 30 minutes as her joints became more comfortable. The weight came off slowly but steadily, and her knee pain, which had been rated an 8 out of 10 when she first came to see me, dropped to a 3. The fourth and final habit you should practice every day is protecting your joints through proper body mechanics in everything you do. The way you sit, stand, walk, bend, and lift affects your joints every single moment. Poor body mechanics can turn simple daily activities into sources of joint damage. Mrs. Linda Garcia, a 69-year-old retired florist from San Antonio, came to me with severe lower back and hip pain. When I asked about her daily routine, she described how she spent hours gardening, one of her greatest passions. But the way she gardened was destroying her joints. She would bend at the waist to weed, putting tremendous stress on her lower back. She would kneel on one knee while twisting her torso, creating dangerous forces through her hips and spine. She would carry heavy bags of soil without proper technique. I didn't tell Linda to stop gardening. Instead, we worked on modifying how she did it. We got her a kneeling pad and a small stool. We taught her to bend at the knees instead of the waist. We showed her how to lift heavy objects by engaging her legs rather than her back. We encouraged her to take breaks every 20 to 30 minutes. Linda told me something beautiful a few months later. She said that by changing how she moved, she was able to garden more, not less. The pain that used to force her inside after an hour was gone. Now she could spend entire mornings in her beloved garden without paying for it later. This principle applies to everything you do throughout the day. When you pick something up from the floor, do you bend at the waist with straight legs, or do you squat down using your leg muscles? When you carry grocery bags, do you hold them all in one hand, creating an uneven load, or do you distribute the weight evenly? When you get out of a car, do you twist your spine while keeping your hips planted, or do you turn your whole body as a unit? Mr. Donald Harris, a 79-year-old retired mechanic from Cleveland, had severe lower back pain that radiated down to his hips. When I watched him get up from a chair during his examination, I immediately saw the problem. He would lean forward, then twist to one side while pushing off the armrest, creating a torquing motion through his spine that was clearly causing damage. I spent an entire session just teaching Donald how to sit down and stand up properly. It sounds simple, but these are movements we do dozens of times per day. He learned to scoot to the edge of the chair, keep his feet flat on the floor, and use his leg muscles to power himself up while keeping his spine straight. The technique felt awkward at first, but within a few weeks, it became automatic. Donald reported a 50% reduction in his lower back pain from this change alone. He told me he wished someone had taught him this decades ago. Another aspect of body mechanics that many people overlook is posture while standing and walking. Mrs. Evelyn Chambers, a 68-year-old retired bank manager from Philadelphia, had developed a forward-leaning posture over the years. This posture put constant strain on her lower back, hips, and knees. We worked on exercises to strengthen her core and improve her posture awareness. I taught her to imagine a string attached to the top of her head, gently pulling her toward the ceiling. Gradually, her posture improved, and with it, her joint pain decreased significantly. As we come to the end of our time together today, I want you to really absorb what we've discussed. The health of your joints isn't determined by fate or genetics alone. It's shaped profoundly by the choices you make every single day. The 4 habits that worsen joint pain: prolonged sitting, wearing improper footwear, overdoing high-impact exercise, and chronic dehydration, these are all things within your control to change. And the 4 habits that protect your joints: morning stretching, anti-inflammatory eating, maintaining healthy weight, and using proper body mechanics, these are all things you can start implementing today. You don't have to make all these changes at once. Pick one habit to address this week. Maybe it's setting a timer to remind yourself to move every hour. Maybe it's examining your footwear and making a trip to a shoe store that specializes in supportive shoes. Maybe it's placing a water bottle beside your favorite chair as a reminder to drink more throughout the day. Small changes, consistently applied over time, lead to remarkable transformations. I've seen it happen thousands of times in my practice, and I believe it can happen for you too. Your joints carried you through decades of living, working, raising families, and creating memories. They deserve your attention and care now. With the right habits, you can protect them, reduce your pain, and continue doing the activities that bring you joy. I also want to remind you that while the information I've shared today is based on scientific evidence and clinical experience, nothing replaces a personal evaluation by your own healthcare provider. If you're experiencing significant joint pain, please make an appointment with your doctor. Bring up what you've learned today and work together to create a plan that's tailored specifically to you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If this video has helped you understand your joint health better, I'd be honored if you'd share it with a friend or family member who might benefit from this information. And please, leave a comment below, telling me which habit you plan to work on first. Your engagement helps more people find this content, and it helps me know what topics matter most to you. Take care of yourself, take care of your joints, and I'll see you in the next video.